My top 10 books, like fantasy, science fiction, maybe, I don't know if I'm allowed to put that in there. I don't think I have a lot of changes personally of what my top 10 rated books are. I'm basically still reading a lot of all the things. I know the YouTube algorithm basically rewards people who stays on top of the latest newest published books and series and manga, but yeah, for me, a lot of these things have stayed the same over many years. But one thing that actually has changed that I wouldn't have said was in my top 10 at any point is Dungeon Crawler Card.
God damn it,
Sorry if I
Donut.
pronounce these things weird.
Damn it,
I do
Donut.
struggle sometimes with my English a bit, not my first language. Be that as it may, if it's yours, feel free to tell me how to pronounce these. Dungeon Crawler Carl. I actually got my girlfriend to start listening to these, and with a massive surprise, she loved it. I thought I was like basically punishing her, being like, she asked me, what audiobook should I listen to? And I was like, you know what? Do these 3 Dungeon Crawler Carl, tell me what you think. I thought it was a bit of a joke, she's not gonna be that into it. No, I thought there might be a bit of a chance, but then I was surprised when she actually loved it. I'm only 4 books deep, I think, 4. The book after Feral Gods or something. But Princess Donut, probably my favorite character of the series, and one of my favorite characters in 2024 because I only started listening to it. But yeah, that's number 10. Number 9 is the First Law Era 1. I haven't read Era 2, so I'm sure it might be higher if I do. I'm hoping to read it in 2025. I think I have to. I'm busy reading Best Served Cold right now as well, but can't put that in there. So at number 9 right now is First Law. Number 8, a bit of a controversial one, but one of my first ever fantasy reads is Memory, Sorrow and Thorn by Tad Williams, is that his name? Yeah. Just one of the first like Euro characters that isn't your typical Euro, written I believe in the 80s it was written, this trilogy. And yeah, it has a bit of these old cliches, but it's part of those books that created the cliche, you know what I mean? Like some of these books, like these older ones, you say like, oh, you read it and you're like, you can't read past these cliches, the typical item, magical item, or the MacGuffin, whatever. It's like, these were the books that made it a cliche. It worked so well that everyone else wanted to do it again. But one of the things it changed was the sort of main character, the Euro figure that isn't your typical strong, extremely, I want to say masculine, skilled, everything comes naturally to this person, outgoing. Either way, fantastic read. I loved it, got me into fantasy, but yeah, it wasn't my very first fantasy book series, but I still loved it. Number 7, also recent, maybe a bit of recency bias, is the Sun Eater series. It's a bit cliche that I put it on here. It will probably be on everyone's top 10 this year, most likely. I haven't finished yet. I'm not up to date yet. I have to finish reading Demon in White. For now, it is because of probably recency. It is at my number 7 spot. Number 6, Children of Time. I read this back in high school. Don't know how I would handle it right now. I want to do a reread of it in 2025. But, it just was mind-blowing, and it's just one of those things that one of my friends read it as well, and we would spend hours and hours just talking about it. In class at school, a spectacular book, and got me into science fiction. Children of Time, I was obviously disappointed in what came after those, but it still makes my top 10 at number 6. Number 5, Mistborn Era 1. Only actually read this pretty recently. I don't know if this counts as a spoiler. If you haven't read this and you absolutely don't want to know any sort of spoiler, then okay, maybe skip like 20-30 seconds. But yeah, here it comes. The way it basically talks about faith was one of the best, I want to say, fantasy books I've read about faith. I mean, A Song of Ice and Fire does obviously spectacular commentary on faith and religions, but the way the one character here says it, has his inner monologue, and he's talking to himself and he's struggling with his faith, that basically hit way too hard, you know? For that reason, it might not be for everyone. But I cannot get Mistborn Era 1 out of my top 10 just because of that specific character and his development and in faith. And the way he basically looks at faith and religion. Let's move on to Hyperion. Oops, spoiler. Let's move on to number 4, Hyperion. Do you say Hyperion or Hyperion? Hyperion? Ew, I mean, so many characters. That one book made me like fall in love and get invested in so many different characters. Usually a book can't get me invested in that many people at once, just because it doesn't have enough pages to do it. Literally just pulled me in and it asked so many questions, or it had so many mysteries that I just wanted to figure out. It focused on one character, basically I want to say per chapter, and it's 7 chapters or something. Every character, you get a taste of this mystery, this place, this planet Hyperion, one of the 9 labyrinthian worlds, this weird creature called the Shrike, the journey to this place. It asks you so many questions and you want so many answers. After you finish a character, you immediately start reading the next because you're just so curious. Yeah, some of the characters are slightly less intriguing than the others, but still absolutely loved it. Is it my best science fiction book of all time? I think it is, because it's at number 4. Number 3, Berserk. I'm not that far in Berserk, but nothing gets me more motivated and makes me want to hit the gym harder. I enjoy gymming. I don't know if that's a problem. Nowadays people look a bit down more on gymming because it has become such a gym bro sort of vibe. Everyone's like a testosterone person. Everyone's using steroids and doing these crazy things in the gym, or putting out these bizarre videos trying to get more views, and it maybe gives a bit of a bad look on people who just gym because, yeah, I just enjoy gymming. I enjoy exercising. It makes me feel good. What am I even saying? Either way, I enjoy gymming. When I read Berserk, it makes me want to gym. It gives me some emotional damage, and nothing is a better motivator in the gym than emotional damage. If you've got your heart broken, if you've gone through a bad time, if you've read a very heartbreaking chapter, you can hit the gym much harder. Number 2, what else than the Stormlight archives? Obviously I haven't read the 5th entry, but I mean, yeah, nothing has to be said about this. This also actually gave me a lot of motivation to gym. Made you want to go outside when it's storming out and just rain in that storm, you know, in the Stormlight. Does this make sense at all? Some of my favorite characters of all time in this book. I didn't even mention some of my favorite characters of all time in the other books. I did mention Caesar at least, but like Kaladin, Dalinar, easy pickings for some of the best characters. I'm not going to go back and look for other best characters. Gothka, of course. I mean, come on. But either way, before I get to number 1, honorable mentions. All right, so sorry, my camera died there. Probably happens when it's like some of your first YouTube videos ever. It's bound to happen, but thanks for sticking around so far. So before I get to my number 1 spot, some honorable mentions. The Poppy War. I mean, nothing probably needs to be said about that. That's most people that watch YouTube book recommended videos or BookTube knows about the books, have probably read it, and yeah, it's brilliant. The trilogy, it gave me a different perspective on war in general, and not a enjoyable read, but a fascinating one. The Greenbone Saga also, I'm not going to go into that because it's already so popular in general. It's not like I'm realizing I don't have any books that are out of the ordinary that isn't that popular. And that's a bit of a shame. But regardless, the Red Rising series, I mean, the trilogy at the beginning, I mean, I was like, yo, that's pretty good. I'm still busy reading, is it Dark Age or am I on Lightbringer? I'm not sure. I think I'm at the end of Dark Age actually. Very good. I couldn't put it in here because I just couldn't replace something else. Maybe I'd replace Dungeon Crawler Carl. I really love the Red Rising series. But yeah, I haven't finished it, and the amount of times I laughed, and sometimes you gotta put in something that's more light, you know? The amount of times I laughed Dungeon Crawler Carl, I'm like, no book has made me laugh. Well, not out loud really. So that's why it's in the honorable mentions for a reason. And other honorable mentions that I haven't gotten to, I'm not sure if I have any. Oh, I haven't read any Terry Pratchett. Okay, so I'm guessing I would love that. I haven't read any of it. Maybe I get to it next year. I should get to one. But that's why none of that's in my top 10. I also don't like the take of a lot of booktubers saying they don't put Stormlight or they don't put Mistborn in the top 10 because they don't like the entire Cosmere as a whole. That to me is almost a bit like not putting the first law in your top 10 because you didn't like the short story book. I don't think I have to love Mistborn Era 2 to have Mistborn Era 1 in my top 10. Same goes for the Children of Time book and a lot of other books, And also, I don't want to put them as one. I don't want to say Cosmere as my number 2 or number 1 or whatever, because I'm like, I have to split Mistborn and Stormlight Archive because it's different. Like, it's different stories. I don't feel like I can put them into one thing. Either way, that being said, those were my honorable mentions, unless I'm missing something. But at my number 1 spot is A Song of Ice and Fire. It was maybe a spoiler that was sitting right there. Hopefully George doesn't die before we can finish it, because I need to see how it ends. This made me fall in love with fantasy so hard. I was already a bit into fantasy before I read this, but this just hit so much harder than anything I've ever read before until I got to this. And then actually after this, I started reading Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. And Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time are above A Song of Ice and Fire for me. They're above the top 10 list. The Lord of the Rings, obviously, and A Wheel of Time, to me, are unbeatable, And A Song of Ice and Fire might match that. For me personally, it might match that, depending on how George ends it. If it doesn't end and someone else writes the endings of the book and it doesn't hit, then it might just drop out of my top 10. It might go from number 1 to number 20 or whatever. If it ends great, then it might just go above all others with their, like, 3 in a row. Bah! Wheel of Time. Bah! No, wait. Bah! Lord of the Rings. Bah! Game of Thrones. No, not Game of Thrones. Bah! Song of Ice and Fire. Bah! What was the other one? Wheel of Time. Yeah, those 3 in a row above everything else. And at number 1, hopefully, if the 5th entry of Stormlight Archive is great, then that would be number 1. Either way, thank you for watching. I hope you had a good reading year and a Merry Christmas to you. I mean, I have a small little Christmas tree. Yeah, if you see that small Christmas tree and you want me to maybe afford a bigger one, then maybe like this video and I could maybe afford one eventually.